Welcome to the Crown Score Podcast. Kevin Stewart, Reggie Walker. As always, we were off last week with the 4th of July holiday, but we're back this week with a familiar face to Reggie and myself, more of a familiar voice to sports radio listeners across the country. He's the co-host of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. Freddie Coleman. Freddie, thank you so much for coming on with us. How you doing this week?
I'm good, Kevin. DJ Reg, what's going on, gentlemen?
What's up, guys? Fred's in the building.
Amen to that.
Hey, Freddie, whenever I hear your voice, I have this image of me walking down to the old newsroom in Bristol, bringing shot sheets to a 30-second highlight that's going to get floated. And I see you in the studio and they're doing your thing. And it's so cool to now have you here with us 10 years after I've left Bristol. I know Reggie's been in long for him, but it's cool to reconnect.
Amen. Yeah, anytime we get a chance to have Bristol South, Bristol North, Bristol anyway, that's not a bad thing.
And I'm going to let everybody know, I'm going to snitch on Freddie a little bit. I mean, they probably already know this. Don't let Freddie fool you. He can do TV too. He's not just a radio guy. He has done it, and I've been a part of it.
Yes, you have. As a matter of fact, anytime Bus get those kind of opportunities, I try to run with them. But radio's the bread and butter. I'm never leaving radio anytime soon.
Speaking of radio, Freddie, I was listening to you on Thursday night on my way home following Game 2 of the NBA Finals, and the narrative was Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday not doing enough to help out Giannis, who had a huge game on one leg. But last night they did enough to help the man out, or Sunday night, I should say. Devin Booker, kind of an off night as we head into Game 4. Do you feel like whoever steals the road game is going to take this series?
Oh, there's no doubt about that, Kevin and Reggie, because the one concern I had going into Game 3, and definitely Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, you were not expecting to play as badly as they did, although Drew Holiday on defense was really good in Game 2. But I honestly believe the pressure is going to be on Mike Budenholzer to make the kind of adjustments that we saw in Game 3 on Sunday night, because he did a great job of not only creating space for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but not letting the ball stick with just the Greek freak, because we saw that way too many times in Game 1, way too many times in Game 2. And I get it, when you have a once-in-a-generational kind of talent that Giannis is, but why would Mike Budenholzer forget about that when he was injured in Game 5 and Game 2 Eastern Conference Finals? That ball was beat-bopping all over the place. We had Brook Lopez. He had a great game in Game 5. And then Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, along Bobby Portis, were terrific in Game 6. You can marry those two together. You can have a great player, but you can also have flow and you can also have movement of the basketball and develop a rhythm. And if he doesn't believe that, check out the Phoenix Suns, where they are able to move the basketball around. And if it wasn't for those two great runs that Milwaukee had in that first half, the halftime lead, and then when Phoenix knocked it down to 4, they go on another big-time run because they shared the basketball and they were able to ride Giannis. If he goes back to just pound the basketball and don't spread the basketball around, then Mike Budenholzer hasn't learned anything from what he did not see from this team at Game 1 and Game 2 that he was able to put in place in Game 3 to make it more of a series between the Bucks and also the Phoenix Suns.
And Freddie, that's a great point you made. I think I tweeted something to the effect at some point during Game 2. I'm like, okay, so when Giannis is off the floor, we're just going to go Chris Middleton and just let him dribble around and see what kind of jump shot he can get. And it's kind of interesting how that goes. But the question I really want to ask you, Freddie, is speaking of Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, and then on the flip side, right, with Phoenix, when you look at not necessarily as much with a guy like Devin Booker, but when you look at a Bridges and an Ayton, finding that consistency, and I hate to use this example because I think he played well toward the end stretch of when they got eliminated, Paul George. I remember when he went to LA and even right before he went to Oklahoma City, there was this, oh, well, Paul George is that guy. Right. And then he didn't play as well in the playoffs. And some people were kind of questioning that quick ascent. Then you look at a guy like Drew Holiday, right? When he got to Milwaukee, that was the thought, okay, this is the guy that takes them over the top. And it's not that simple. Just get into a little bit for me, like why that it's just not that easy. Just add a guy because he's still not 1A, which means he may have some nights where he's not the guy that can go for 35.
Because the league is too good. People don't realize, Reggie and Kevin, that it's hard to average 15 points a game in the NBA. So when you get guys averaging 20, 25, and 30, I don't think people realize how tough that is. Steph Curry doesn't just magically average 32 points a game because people are feeling sorry for him. No, it's really hard to do that in the NBA. And especially when you're trying to find out exact roles, if you're going to have those three kind of players in your basketball team, Phoenix has been able to figure it out. We're going to go as far as Chris Paul and Devin Booker, but somebody's going to step as a third guy. One night could be Mikal Bridges. It looks like DeAndre Ayton is going to be that third guy consistently for the Phoenix Suns. But Cam Johnson has great ability. What he's been able to do off the bench for this basketball team. Jay Crowder was knocking down threes. He single-handedly put them back in that ball game in game 3 on Sunday night. So I think it's a question of not just having the players find out those roles, but now if you're the coach, you got to let them know, okay, this is what we do. Hey, Chris Middleton, if we need to close in the fourth quarter, this is how you're going to do it. Hey, Giannis, we need you to be that Swiss Army knife that can dominate a game and do that. And Drew Holiday, you got to knock down shots, run the basketball team, and also play tough defense. I think they were able to have definitive roles last night because there were a couple of times where you had Chris Middleton feeding the post to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now they put Phoenix in a quandary. What do you do now? Do you double against Giannis and leave Chris Middleton open, or do you say we got to play him straight up and hope for the best? They were able to put Phoenix in kind of a jail situation where once Giannis got those paint touches, that was going to be death for their defense because Phoenix did that to Milwaukee in the first couple of games. They ran those guard-to-guard screens, or they would screen the screener in which Jay Crowder would come over, and then he would screen, and then he would screen him and get him open. Then he gets downhill, or Chris Paul gets downhill and gets into the lane. Milwaukee's able to adjust the screen to screener. Now see if Phoenix can adjust that because more than ever before in a championship series, guys got to know their roles, and it can switch up. It can be a possession by possession. It can be game by game. But if you define a role and you're playing that role well, you can't go away from that and think that's going to work no matter who you are or what your pedigree has been coming into this series.
Freddie, speaking of consistency, LaMelo Ball, I mean, he took this city over by storm, and he was on every night. It was rare that you had an off night from LaMelo. 3-time Rookie of the Month before the injury, Rookie of the Year, just won the ESPY this past weekend for Best Breakthrough Athlete. When you see that, and you have Gordon Hayward, who just came here last summer, the emergence of Miles Bridges, the emergence of Terry Rozier, as someone who covers the league as a whole, do you feel like Charlotte is starting to emerge as a potential destination for free agents?
The one thing that'll happen for Charlotte, that's going to happen, they got to worry about a team down south called Atlanta. Because that team got into the playoffs with Trae Young. For the first time, really ever in the history of the Atlanta Hawks, they now have a guy that guys want to go play with. They never had that with Dominique Wilkins. And I know the NBA is a lot different in the 80s and 90s than it is now. More than ever before, if you have a guy that guys say, yeah, I want to join that guy. Prime example, look at Devin Booker with the Phoenix Suns. He was coming on strong, and they go 8-0 in the bubble, and Chris Paul said, if I join him with that guy, we can do some things. Nobody expected the Phoenix Suns to be in the NBA Finals, but he is a draw. There's no doubt about that. Trae Young is now a draw because even if you lose John Collins, there's going to be somebody out there that'll say, oh, yeah, I can play that guy for the next 4 to 5 years. LaMelo Ball has that kind of ability and that kind of electricity because he's a big guard that'll give people a basketball. He understands the game so well at a young age that even when he was injured, he was still on the sidelines looking at the game, digesting everything so that when he was able to come back from that injury, he was not going to be that much farther behind the 8 ball. So when you have that kind of draw, that kind of potential guy, it makes a big difference. But now he has to worry about a Trae Young being the kind of draw because if Trae Young's not in Atlanta, then also you look at Charlotte and say, yeah, I can play in a great city. Don't have to pressure the New York media, the LA media. Don't have to worry about anything else. We can just be in a basketball town, in a basketball city and make that work. But now Atlanta has become a basketball city because I don't think anybody thought that Trae Young united everybody, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, Tea Party and non-Tea Party people. Nobody thought we would see that in Atlanta. And that was what he was able to do because A, he's the guy that can deliver in the clutch, and B, he is a tough-minded player. LaMelo Ball, to me, could be a bigger version of that. But that's the only worry. He can be a draw, but you got to worry about Trae Young having the same kind of effect a little further south, but in the same region when it comes to that.
And Freddie, speaking of LaMelo Ball, and this is something you're the perfect person to me to ask this question of, because obviously you watched all this thing play out, but just the way you think and the way you look at things, I really want to ask you this. LaMelo Ball, watching everything that happened with his brother Lonzo and then LiAngelo with the whole thing overseas with the dad and LeVar doing everything he did. How much did that kind of, to use a Chad Johnson phrase from I Am Athlete, how much did that callous LaMelo to be able to prepare for and block out so many of the things he's blocking out now and just play basketball?
That's a good question.
That's a really great question because how much do we hear about that? The best teacher is experience. And if LaMelo Ball didn't learn anything from that experience, I think more of that was probably along the lines of his dad more than his brother Lonzo, because they can share the fact that, man, that's our father. We got to support him. That's our daddy. But, we know how that's going to go. So they had kindred spirits with each other because they were going through that. And it's not to say LeVar Ball was totally bad, because LeVar Ball did what any dad does for his sons or for his children. You want to protect them as much as you possibly can. LeVar Ball decided that I'm going to have all this attention on me. This way they can go out and play basketball. What LeVar Ball didn't realize was that the blowback was not going to go so much on him. It was going to go on Lonzo Ball, where he's going to enemy arenas and people talking about his dad and this and that. So LaMelo Ball had a chance to see that and say, well, if that happens to me, I know how to deal with it. But he didn't have to face as much because Lonzo was the guinea pig for this whole situation. And once LeVar Ball started to have his star, for lack of a better term, recede into the woodwork, then LaMelo Ball is able to go out and play basketball. Now, it could have been a lot different. Let's say the Los Angeles Lakers or the Clippers had drafted him. That could have been a whole different kind of mess for LaMelo Ball. But the fact he goes to the Charlotte Hornets, where people aren't even interested. If anything, LeVar Ball is what you don't want as a Charlotte Hornets fan, taking attention from his son and taking attention away from his franchise. So the fact he was able to be drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, the city embraced him. But as important, Reggie and Kevin, he embraced the city. I don't get the sense that LaMelo Ball's thinking, like, 3-4 years, I'm out of here. He's like, I can make this. I can make this my town. I can make this a basketball hotbed that people come to see us play because I'm going to be here. But going through that whole Kardashian thing that he went through, LeVar Ball and everything else, you're exactly right. It did callous him because he said, okay, whatever went on with my brother and my dad, I know it's not going to happen to me. And I think the best thing happened to LaMelo Ball was when Lonzo Ball cut ties with his dad and said, you know what? I'm not signing a big baller brand sneaker. I'm going to sign a deal over here. The minute LaMelo Ball saw that and saw that he was not going to get any kind of brushback from his father, he said, okay, if Lonzo can do it, I know I can do it when my turn comes.
That's a really good point. Freddie, you and I were discussing football teams before the show, and you said you were a Jet fan. So you're the perfect guy to ask this. The Panthers are still in a rebuild. Year 2 of Matt Rule. But Reggie and I have talked about Sam Darnold endlessly on this podcast since they traded for him. What's the biggest thing that you've seen from him over the 3 years he was in New York that he needs to overcome in order to become successful in Charlotte? Because Reggie and I both think this team can be good because they're so strong on defense. They have so many weapons on offense, but it's going to come down to number 14 under center.
I don't think he has to overcome anything, because if you can overcome Adam Gase, you can deal with anything. And I'm hoping that Adam
worked out for Ryan Tannehill.
Well, that's a whole different conversation too, because you're exactly right. Adam Gase was trying to sell people tickets that he was Bill Belichick part 2. And I'm like, dude, you're not even Bill Belichick's son. But the Jets bought into that. And the fact that he didn't ruin his career when it comes to Sam Darnold, but he didn't exactly help him either. Adam Gase was riding on the reputation that he was the quarterback coach for Peyton Manning. Come on now. You and I could have quarterback Peyton Manning. You know the best way to quarterback him? Get out of his way, because he knows football. Adam Gase was riding that to a head coaching job, not only with the Jets, but the Miami Dolphins. And it was clear to me that when the Dolphins let him go and the Jets hired him, I have a couple of friends of mine who are Dolphins fans, Kevin and Reggie. They were like laughing out loud saying, man, that's the best thing for us. That's going to be the worst thing for your football team. And I said, you need to tell me that, because I know he didn't do anything with the Dolphins, and he was even worse than the New York Jets. So I don't think that Sam Darnold has to overcome anything. If anything, he's got to have a guy that knows what he's doing when it comes to Matt Rule, who knows how to run a football team, who knows how to run an offense. You get Christian McCaffrey back, which is going to be a boon to Sam Darnold, because that's still the face of your franchise when it comes to Christian McCaffrey if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. But now, for the first time in a long time, probably since his USC days, Sam Darnold's going to go into games believing he's on an even playing field, that he's going to be having even footing, because he has a team and a situation around him that's going to be conducive to his talents. All Adam Gase did, the Sam Darnold would say, if I can survive this, if I can survive that guy, I can deal with anything. Not having any of that to deal with the Carolina Panthers is not only going to serve Sam Darnold well, but it's definitely going to serve the Carolina Panthers well. You may not see it in 2021. It's still a new quarterback with a new team. But going forward in that division, where you got to worry about the Saints and the Falcons, who are going to be in the come up in another couple of years. And, of course, right now you have the Kings of that division, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But at least you now have a feeling that you have a quarterback going into a game where you feel even if it's not even, he can make things just a little bit more even, because I still believe that Sam Darnold has ability and talent.
And Freddie, I'm glad you ended your point there, because I want to ask this question. When you look at the division, right, Matt Ryan is late 30s, right? Probably going to turn him over from that franchise in the next couple of years. Drew Brees just retired. And chances are, right? I mean, he seems to be Benjamin Button right now, but chances are Tom Brady's going to retire in the next year or two. How important is it that Sam Darnold is the right answer at quarterback for this franchise because of the way the division is turning over, and they don't want to end up back at the back of the line, if you will, with that position and going forward?
Yeah, you got to get this right in terms of coaching Sam Darnold properly and hope that it's going to work out, because we don't know what the quarterback draft class is going to look like in another year or two. And I've always been a big believer. You worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes. And I think so many teams will say in a couple of years, so many teams are doing that with Trevor Lawrence, and a lot of those teams are now winding with Trevor Lawrence. The Jacksonville Jaguars have him, and they're hoping with him being there in Urban Meyer that they'll be able to get that right in Jacksonville. But if you're the Carolina Panthers, you have a guy that's played in the National Football League. You have a guy that has won some games in the National Football League and has been able to show the ability that you put talent around him, he's going to be able to produce. So in that division, you're right. Although I'm with you, Reggie. Tom Brady's going to be 80 years of age. He's going to be in a wheelchair. They're going to wheel him out there. He's going to throw 35 touchdown passes for a year. They're going to wheel him back to the sidelines. Wait till the defense gets out there. It's his turn to get out. They're going to wheel him back out there, give him some Geritol. Yep. He's going to throw touchdown passes all over the place. But at a certain point, you're right. That is an older division when it comes to quarterbacks. And we still don't know what the Saints are going to do, because it can't just be a fait accompli that it's going to be Jameis Winston's job. Because I know if I'm tasting him, I'm thinking, well, to bring some memory to your memory, when Drew Brees was injured, I played pretty well. I was able to do some things in this offense that you had no chances of doing because Drew Brees was at the end of his career. So he can't just assume that Jameis Winston's going to win that job outright. But now you're the Carolina Panthers. You can set yourself up to say, okay, we got the team we want. Our offensive line is going to get better. We trust our defense is going to do some things. But if we got that quarterback, all of a sudden he can raise everybody else's level, where he's the youngest guy at quarterback in that division compared to everybody else. And then you're setting yourself up to say, we add a couple more pieces, then we can do some things if those teams have not been able to figure out their quarterback position or have to start over when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons and potentially Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Although they drafted Kyle Trask, you could not have picked a better person to follow Tom Brady than that kid out of Florida. He can throw that football around, and now you haven't learned it from Tom Brady. Only good's going to come out of that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, Reggie loves Kyle Trask.
Well, Freddie, I've said about Kyle Trask, one of the things I said was people need to let that bowl game go, because as you know, when you get to a bowl game and you've got an older quarterback like Kyle Trask, the fifth-year guy, and you've got a young guy, and your bowl game means nothing, that guy's going to start, but he probably got 5% of the reps in bowl practice. And then you stick him out there and let him start. He looks bad, and everybody goes, what happened to that guy? He didn't have a chance to prepare. Now, Dan Mullen he'll lie through his teeth on that, because he didn't want to embarrass his guy or whatever. And Kyle Trask will say he had every opportunity to be prepared. But we both know chances are he didn't get very many snaps in practice during bowl preparation.
Here's the deal, Kevin and Reggie, and you make the point, but if anybody based their evaluation on what they saw in the bowl game, then that's the last person you need to evaluate in football, because these are the same people that said Jamarcus Russell was the best player in the draft because he dominated Notre Dame defense that was awful when he beat him up in the Sugar Bowl. He gets drafted by the Raiders, and we know how that date ended at the flames for the Raiders organization, Jamarcus Russell. So anybody that tries to use bowl games as a barometer over the other 12 or 13 games that a guy played, that's why I look at them with side and go, okay, you're the last person I'm asking about evaluating prospects if you're using a bowl game as a guide. And that's not to say bowl games can't help players. They can really bring you up. Let's say if you were somebody under the radar and you dominate a team that was terrific all season long. If they had done that, let's say if they play Alabama in the bowl game and you know they're going to be on point to try to go after that team, then you can maybe have a little bit of an evaluation situation. And if you're able to play well against them, of course, that's going to raise your name. But other than that, I look at a guy, what he was able to do throughout the whole regular season, and then you'll see exactly, because the tape doesn't lie. Bowl games don't tell you the truth, but the tape throughout the whole year, that's going to tell you about a player, good or bad, whatever that's going to be, especially in college football.
I've always said if a bowl game or the combine moves a guy by more than a round, that GM's going to get fired.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mike Mamula, prime example. He dominated the combine for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. They said this guy's going to be the next great pass rusher. Nice guy, Mike Mamula. I met him a couple of times, but man, oh man, the minute he got out there, he could not live with that pressure. And a lot of people lost their jobs because they saw a workout warrior and thought this guy's going to transfer that to the National Football League on the field.
Yeah, it didn't work out. Hey, Freddie, real quick before we get you out of here, in 30 seconds or less, give us an NFL team that you think could surprise in 2021.
If Washington can get the right kind of quarterback play, they got a bunch of filthy McNasties on defense. I mean, they can get after people, and they got a coach in Ron Rivera that's going to have accountability. So if they get more Fitz magic with Ryan Fitzpatrick instead of Fitz tragic, that's a team that's going to win the NFC East. And with their defense, you have to worry about them playing a high-flying game. They're going to play 17-13, 20-17. They're going to try to get you to play their style because they're going to rely on their running game, rely on their defense. But they see a lot of Fitz tragic, then that's going to be a problem. But keep an eye on that team because with their defense and their coaching, they're going to be really, really good. I think not just in the NFC East or right now the NFC least, because I don't think anybody is going to win more than 9 games. But that may be the kind of team that's a blood and guts kind of team that you do not want to see in the playoffs because they gave Tampa Bay the best run out of any playoff team last year. They gave them holy you-know-what before losing that game later against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
He is the co-host of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. Freddie Coleman, thank you so much for coming on Groundswell with us, and it's good to see you again, man.
Always a pleasure seeing you guys, man. You guys take care and be well. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Freddie. Thanks, my man.